He won the match, but something didn't look right. Why was Carlos Alcaraz shaking his wrist like that? And why did it feel like everyone watching knew something was about to go very, very wrong? Because now, just days later, we're not talking about a small scare anymore. We're talking about a potential disaster for Alcaraz's entire clay season, and maybe even his grip on the number one dream. This is not just another injury update. This could completely reshape the ATP Tour over the next 2 months. And there's one name quietly waiting to take advantage of all of it, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's start with what actually happened, because the timeline here is more important than people realize. Carlos Alcaraz stepped onto the court at the Barcelona Open looking sharp, focused, and ready to dominate the clay swing once again. He was coming off a demanding stretch, sure, but this is what champions do. They push through, they compete, they win, and he did win against Otto Virtanen. Alcaraz got the job done. On paper, it looks routine. Another victory. Another step forward. But tennis isn't played on paper. It's played in those tiny moments you almost miss. The slight hesitation. The shake of the hand. The look toward the box. Something was off. During that match, Alcaraz began dealing with discomfort in his wrist. Not a dramatic collapse. Not a sudden fall. Just enough to raise eyebrows. And that's what makes it even more dangerous. Because wrist injuries in tennis don't always explode immediately. Sometimes they creep in quietly, and then suddenly everything stops. And that's exactly what happened next. Alcaraz was scheduled to face Tomas Makak in the next round. Fans were expecting another high-energy performance. Another statement. Instead, they got a walkover. No match. No fight. Just a withdrawal that instantly sent shockwaves through the tennis world. And if you think that's where the bad news ends, it doesn't. Because shortly after that, the confirmation came that Alcaraz would not be playing the Madrid Open. Again, now, missing Madrid once can be unlucky. Missing it 2 years in a row? That starts to feel like a pattern, or worse, a warning sign. Madrid is not just any tournament. It's home. It's a Masters 1000. It's a stage where Alcaraz is expected to shine, dominate, and build momentum heading into the biggest clay events of the year. And now, he's not even stepping onto the court. But here's where things start to get really serious. The conversation shifted from, he'll be back soon, to, how long is he actually going to be out? And that's when Feliciano Lopez stepped in with a perspective that changed everything. Lopez isn't just a tournament director. He's been through this. He understands the physical toll tennis takes, especially on something as delicate and complex as the wrist. And what he said wasn't comforting. He described the injury as something common in tennis, involving inflammation in the wrist tendons. That might sound manageable at first, but then he added something that should make every Alcaraz fan nervous. He said when he had a similar issue, he couldn't even hold a racket properly for days. And he was out for about 2 months. 2 months. Let that sink in for a second. Because if that timeline even comes close to applying here, we're not just talking about missing Madrid. We're talking about potentially missing Rome, and maybe even Roland Garros. Yes, that Roland Garros. The tournament where Alcaraz is supposed to defend his title. The tournament that defines the clay season. And suddenly, it's not guaranteed he'll even be there. Now, to be clear, this is not confirmed. This is where we need to separate fact from speculation. Alcaraz's exact recovery timeline hasn't been officially locked in yet. But when someone like Lopez says that playing the Italian Open feels almost impossible, you have to take that seriously. Because Rome isn't just another stop. It's a crucial warm-up. It's where players fine-tune their game before heading into Paris. If Alcaraz misses that, he goes into Roland Garros without proper preparation, or worse, he doesn't go at all. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Because injuries don't just affect one tournament. They create ripple effects. Right now, the ATP rankings are incredibly tight at the top. The gap between Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner is razor thin. Just a few hundred points. That's it. And under normal circumstances, this would be a battle decided on the court. Match by match. Win by win. But injuries change everything. Alcaraz pulling out of Madrid doesn't cost him ranking points this time, which is a small relief. But if he misses Rome, that's a completely different story. He's defending a massive chunk of points there. 1,000 points. If those disappear. And if Jannik Sinner performs well, we're looking at a potential shift that could redefine the number one race for the rest of the season. And let's talk about Sinner for a moment, because this is where things get really interesting. While Alcaraz is dealing with uncertainty, Sinner is building momentum, confidence, consistency. This is not the same player from a year ago. This is someone who looks ready to take control of the tour. And if the door opens, even slightly, players at that level don't hesitate. They walk right through it. So the question becomes, is this the moment where the balance of power shifts? Is this where Sinner takes over, not just temporarily, but as a dominant force in men's tennis? Or will Alcaraz come back stronger, using the setback as fuel? Because if there's one thing we've learned about Alcaraz, it's that writing him off is a dangerous game. We've seen him deal with pressure before. We've seen him bounce back. We've seen him win when people least expect it. But injuries are different. They're unpredictable. They don't care about rankings or momentum. They don't follow a script. And wrist injuries, in particular, can be tricky. They affect everything. Your serve, your forehand, your confidence. Even a slight hesitation can change the outcome of a match at this level. So now, everything comes down to recovery. How serious is the inflammation? How quickly can he heal? Will he rush back, or will he take the time needed to fully recover? Because that decision could define not just his clay season, but his entire year. And here's something else to think about. We often focus on physical recovery, but what about the mental side? Imagine preparing to defend your biggest title, knowing you might not even be fit to compete. That uncertainty can be just as challenging as the injury itself. And yet, this is where champions are made, not just in victories, but in how they respond to adversity. So what happens next? Best case scenario, Alcaraz recovers faster than expected. He returns just in time for Roland Garros, finds his rhythm, and reminds everyone why he's one of the most exciting players in the world. Worst case scenario, he misses multiple tournaments, loses crucial ranking points, and watches as the rest of the tour moves forward without him. And somewhere in the middle is the most realistic outcome, a partial recovery, a rush comeback, a question mark hanging over every match he plays. And that's what makes this situation so compelling. Because we're not just watching an injury unfold. We're watching a potential turning point in the sport, a moment that could define rivalries, rankings, and legacies. So here's the question I want you to think about, and I genuinely want to hear your take in the comments. If Alcaraz misses Rome and goes into Roland Garros underprepared, should he still play and defend his title, or should he step back and protect his long-term future? Because there's no easy answer here. Play, and you risk making the injury worse. Skip it, and you risk losing momentum, points, and maybe even your place at the top. This is a kind of decision that separates good players from great ones. And right now, all eyes are on Carlos Alcaraz, not just to see if he can recover, but to see how he handles the biggest challenge of his season so far. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about a wrist. This is about timing, opportunity, pressure, and possibly a shift in the future of men's tennis. And if you've been following the sport long enough, you know exactly how quickly everything can change. One moment you're lifting trophies, the next you're fighting just to get back on the court. That's the reality of tennis. And right now, Carlos Alcaraz is living it. So keep your eyes on this story, because the next update might not just be about recovery. It might be about a comeback or a completely different number one. And that's what makes this so impossible to ignore.